What do you say? I want you to be my VP. I want you. You're my vice.
Well, George, I'm the CEO of a large company. And I have been Secretary of Defense. And I have been White House Chief of Staff. The Vice Presidency is a mostly symbolic job. However, if we came to a different understanding.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Sub Beacon. I'm Victor Mattis, along with Sonny Bunch and Jonathan V. Last. I'd like to remind you the Sub Beacon is available on iTunes and Google Play. Just look at our podcast and search for Sub Beacon. You'll easily find us. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave a review. Speaking of which, we now have over 500 reviews. Thank you. And over 200 written reviews, including the latest from somebody named RWR40, who gives us 5 stars and says, quote, good, but Bunch is too fat. Where did that come from?
Good, but Bunch is too fat?
Yes, and not PHAT in the olden days. No, it's FAT. Wow. I mean, we don't have.
How could he even see me?
How could he see you? We're not even on Facebook.
I mean, he's not wrong. That's not.
We're not on Facebook Live.
I'm at least 20% too fat. I could be 20% less fat.
It was strange.
Wait, what happened to Skinny Sonny? You went through a phase where you were like you were going to the gym and eating one salad every day.
Second kid destroyed it all. Second kid destroyed it all.
It's your baby weight.
People
think I'm kidding when I say that.
No. That's totally true. Absolutely.
Messed everything up.
Yeah.
I started
kid number 4. I told you.
Crap.
I put on 43 pounds with kid number 4.
Does it get exponential, by the way? Is it like 10, 20, 40?
You better not have another one.
For me, in a weird way, I had massive weight loss with the first kid because there was never any time to eat.
Yes. That's
and
a
so
weird
I
thing.
used to joke with our friend Robert Messenger. We say it was the daddy diet. You can eat anything you want, whenever you want. The trick is you have no time to eat.
That's right. No, that's a weird thing. I lost a lot of weight, and just to be like the 2 days after the baby was born, I'm like, what's happening here?
Yeah, but kid number 2.
For whatever reason.
I mean, I'll tell you what the reason is. We got into like a good cycle of, Beth and I, we were going to the gym. We were, taking turns when the kid was asleep. And then she gets pregnant. And then it's like, wow, she doesn't want to go to the gym. And then I feel bad about going to the gym. And then we just start eating, whatever. We just start eating whatever we want because it's like, you don't need to.
Feeling bad about going to the gym because your spouse can't go to the gym. That's a real feeling, by the way. That's
guilt.
real. It's guilt.
I have guilt.
No. You feel bad that you're getting healthy.
I mean, but also I never actually wanted to go to the gym, so it was a perfect excuse not to go to the gym. Yeah,
guilt
it's like
or alibi.
It's
it's a win-win.
I'm happy where I am. Reviewer,
you just have to find out who RWR.
Stop shaming me.
Yes. Body shaming from RWR.
I've been body shamed.
Who is it? It's somebody that must know you, Sonny, or somebody who's where have they seen you?
He's probably seen pictures of me.
It's Goldfarb.
Could be. Otherwise, how are you doing, Sonny?
I'm fine. Yeah. This is a big week for everyone.
Yes,
big week for everyone. 20th anniversary of The Sopranos.
Oh yes.
20th anniversary.
I ordered my book.
I know. JVL is a huge fan of all the HBO original programming. He thinks it's the touchstone, the cornerstone of the
golden age,
artistic life right now. But Vic, you actually like the show.
I'm a fanatic. Yeah.
Here's my question.
Shoot.
It's been gone for 10 years now.
Yes.
Wow. Was Tony killed at the end of the series? Go.
Yes. Only because I read that article, I think in the Atlantic yesterday, where David Chase in the book inadvertently says they were talking about that scene, and he had thought about doing it earlier in the show, and it was a throwaway line where he goes, "Yeah, no, I had pictured that death scene before, but blah 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 blah," and then the interviewer said, "You do realize that you just said death scene?" And he's like, So
and it was members only jacket, right? I mean, this is the idea. Is members only jacket is the one in Cap 7.
It's the click, yes, right. And then it's the way it just fades. It goes to black immediately, and that he had it coming. I mean, really,
incorrect, Victorino.
Oh,
this
really?
is very wrong. This is
Sonny. What?
The actual,
and you know what I'm talking about.
The actual answer.
Boy.
Is it doesn't matter if he died. It doesn't matter if he died.
That's Stephen Chase's answer.
It doesn't matter if he
died.
It doesn't matter.
Very rock of you.
It doesn't matter if he died. It doesn't matter if he lived. The whole point is he was going to spend the rest of his life looking at the door every time
that's true.
the bell rang to see if the murder was coming.
That's
and
right.
eventually
Watch
it
your
would
back.
just be a cut to black.
That's right. But he did die.
No, but he
okay.
didn't. But he didn't. But it doesn't matter. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. He's Schrodinger's Tony.
So, question.
Yes.
Son, JVL.
Is there any greater fight that one could start on the internet than a Sopranos or Wire fight?
You know,
because those two groups, that is like the Iran-Iraq war.
You know who would have loved to engage in this was the late Dean Barnett. Dean was a huge Wire guy, and I think he also liked the Sopranos too. I bet he would have sided with the Wire. Though
is this the Beatles versus the Stones?
Maybe, but the thing is, for me though, I watched the Wire from beginning to end, and I thought it was amazing, and it's powerful. It really is good. I don't have the stomach to rewatch a lot of the Wire. You know what I'm saying? Whereas I can watch clips of the Sopranos endlessly. Not that I do. I'm just saying.
Well, the Sopranos has been on HBO 2, I think. Kind of constantly over the last week. They've been showing like an episode a night, or a season a day, basically.
You'll never get out. You'll never.
And I'll turn it on, and the TV will be on like 3 hours later. I'll just be still watching the show.
It was two other thoughts about this. One is it's totally a lot for me is very rewatchable. Again, unlike, so many terrible things happen there, but the Wire, terrible things happen, and you don't have the energy to see that again. Whereas I can't get enough of it in The Sopranos. And the other thing is, when I watched the show at the time, I'm so focused on getting to the end, right? Let's get to the end either of the season or the series. I want to get to the end, and sometimes I felt distracted by these side plots and annoyed by it. But then when you look back on it, now that you know how it ends, you could really the side plots are really enjoyable. The whole side plot with Gay Vito, honestly, very funny.
It is
tragic but funny.
I would remind listeners that when HBO originally began to try to advertise and sell The Sopranos, Victorino, you may remember this. They ran ads all over Daily Variety, and it was positioned as a fish out of water comedy, where the idea of it was, here's this mobster, but he's seeing a psychiatrist.
Right.
The idea was like there were two halves of each episode. There was the funny psychiatry half, and then like the mob family half.
Right.
And it was like
it was supposed. They were trying to capitalize on the
analyze
HBO,
this
exactly. Right. HBO executives were trying to capitalize on analyze this.
This was not what the real appeal of the show was.
No,
and it's also not what the show was. Right. Really. You definitely have those kind of competing halves. The problem with The Wire, I'm sorry, just to jump back into this, the problem with trying to rewatch The Wire is that it is a hard show to jump in and out of because it's so densely layered, it's so intricately plotted. I've seen the whole show. I think I've seen basically the whole series twice in bits and pieces. And if you just started a random episode, I would have no idea what was going on.
And you don't even
within the season, within the show. I wouldn't be able to do it. Not like The Sopranos.
And can't remember
where you can just kind of pop in and pop out.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. It has nothing to do with racism.
Yes, well, also my racism, my latent, as we discussed last week. The other thing is that neither of these shows is actually the best HBO show. The best HBO show is Deadwood.
Deadwood. I haven't seen it.
I think Rome is the greatest television show.
Rome is also extremely good.
Well,
the first season of Rome in particular
is the greatest show.
That was Showtime.
I would say
I think
there are parts of Rome that are awesome.
Californication was Showtime, right? Was it?
Which parts of... Oh, thank you. Boy, I wish we had Facebook Live.
I'm just saying. It was wild those days. The other thing is that it's interesting for me, again, is, focusing on these, sort of the a lot of mobsters in movies and the depiction of had been for many years, obviously not for many years, but sort of one dimensional. This is what they do, and you imagine in your mind that it's a full-time job, but of course it's not. They do there's other aspects of their life, and only one part of that is doing what they do. And I mean, I personally know people who are, I'm from Jersey, and they have other...
Finish the thought. Say it out loud.
I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to say, and they have other lives, and we have a great time together, and it's wonderful. And we rarely talk about stuff like that. But anyway,
Are we all going to get clipped?
Yeah, I think so.
Do we all have to go live with Gabe Vito?
No, I'm kidding. He's retired. Retired. Yeah.
Omerta to Vic means just talk euphemistically about it on a podcast listened by tens of thousands of people.
If I was totally in that world, I would have been gone years ago. I'd be like Maury from Goodfellas. Okay.
You definitely would be Maury.
Yeah, no, there's no question.
Just busting balls,
I know. Yeah, just relentless. JVL, how are you?
I'm good. I have one thing to share.
Yes, please.
One thing. My dark carbohydrate mistress is popcorn. Like the one thing that I can't
know
quit.
This because you always talk about you always get popcorn in a theater.
I love popcorn, and it's not bad. Like a single bag of popcorn is like 36 grams of carbs. That's livable if you keep everything else in the day.
It's a lot of air.
Cut. But the best popcorn is cheese popcorn. And when you make cheese popcorn at home, what you always think is when you get like the really nice cheese popcorn from Quinn's and it comes with a little package of sprinkly cheese, you always think to yourself, this is amazing, but I wish I had like 25% more of the powdery, shaky cheese. And I find myself thinking, boy, maybe if I go outside and rip out one of the boxes of Annie's macaroni and cheese that my girls love, I just steal
Annie's
that.
Not Kraft.
No, Kraft is for trash. I could steal that powdered cheese and add it to my popcorn. It would be better. Well, it turns out that you can buy that kind of powdered cheese in a giant tub that's about this big, and Lord Bezos will just deliver it to your house in 24 hours for free.
Poor Lord Bezos.
Question.
Can we just?
We'll come back to that in a minute.
Is it white cheddar? Is that what you're making? White cheddar popcorn?
You can choose any
or the
sort
orange
of cheddar
one?
you want. My first purchase of a giant pack of a jar of powdered cheese is the orange. It's gourmet.
The one for
organic.
mac and cheese. The one for mac and cheese.
It's so, but this allows you to have that feeling of, I wish I had 10% more cheese in my cheesy popcorn.
Yeah, that's it.
Give as much damn cheese as you want.
Let me,
it's so good.
Let me tell you something, JVille. You're about 3 steps away from the fried chicken skin sandwich. That's what. Okay, it starts off with, it's just a packet. You just put it on. It's not a big deal.
The next thing you know, you're standing in your kitchen just spooning powdered cheese
directly in.
It straight.
Because skip the popcorn. Carbs. You don't want the carbs. You just want the powder.
Just eating bacon grease.
I've done that.
Oh.
And you know what?
Shameful.
The first 9 tablespoons are amazing. The 10th becomes a little bit much.
When you were a kid, both of you, did you ever have the Nabisco cheese spread that you put on a cracker? It's a pump.
Oh yes, that's a very 70s.
Okay, so
thing.
it's after Sunday.
It's like the whipped cream version of cheese.
Cheese.
We had like little. I had like grew
It's
up. I had little
pressurized.
individual packets that were like the like creamy cheese or whatever, and then with like the sticks.
This was the pump.
It's like the Alouette.
There's like a pump.
Imagine
it's a canister.
Imagine a whipped cream canister that you turn over with the CSVCs in it, and you push on the button, and out of the little nozzle.
Well, that's just Cheese Whiz.
Yes, it comes out like a cheese, but
that's Cheese Whiz.
But you could sprayed out of a canister.
Yes,
that's Cheese Whiz.
And you can have a lot.
They still have that, don't they?
The Cheese Whiz is typically different. Cheese Whiz is a sort of
it's in a jar,
semi-gelled solid that you have to heat up to make it.
That's right.
This is different.
This one you could pump it out. Maybe Cheese Whiz does it now, but I don't see it anymore.
I will effort
the one that I remember is the Nabisco one. And you can just put it on a cracker, make designs on it.
Make smiley faces.
And then eventually you go directly into your mouth.
At some point, you wind up...
Yeah, well, no, that's exactly right, JVL. And then finally, my sister then complained to my parents because it was chewed on. I took it too far.
It must have been the other child who
it must have been the other child. Just took it too far. Okay.
Like this.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so they still have that. Okay, good. Well, there you go.
Hey, Lord Bezos has something. So I was looking at the news the other day.
Tell me what else is going on.
I saw the news about Lord Bezos. And look, when friends get divorced, you should never take sides. But I'm on the side of Lord Bezos.
Of course, she's not our friend. She's not our friend.
Has she ever delivered a package
She's
of
never done
powdery
anything for
cheese
me.
to me in 24 hours? No.
She's never done a single thing for me.
But I did think about you'll want to mark the time here, the Eddie Murphy Raw bit with the Bush.
Oh boy! Yes, yeah.
The great ending of which is when Eddie Murphy's talking about having this woman who he is married, who is not into him for his money, but they realize after a while that it is important for him to separate from her. He says, "I want you to be happy. I want to take care of you. What is it that you need?" And her response to him is, "Half. I want half, Eddie."
Yes, exactly.
And the minute I saw the headline about Lord Bezos' unfortunate marital complications, the first thing I thought of was half, Eddie.
I was about to ask.
Wow.
So she gets half.
what does that even come down to? Is that like $30 billion? I don't
because she signed the prenup when they were still getting started. Obviously, I mean, he was not. She signed a prenup.
Did she?
That's what I heard, or maybe I misheard it. I was listening to the news
Because
yesterday.
they were both working at hedge funds. I mean, she was rich as well. She was both rich finance people, and this is pre Amazon.
Yeah,
they were married before Amazon.
Yeah.
No, I think they got married
early
during
Amazon.
They've been married for 25 years.
Okay.
They've been married for 25 years. They married when they were both at some New York hedge fund together.
Okay.
And so it is unclear how all the legality. What if she just got Prime and he kept normal? What if she just gets Marketplace?
She gets Audible.
She gets Audible.
She gets Audible. I am totally team Jeff Bezos on this. I mean, look, she give her $1 billion, give her $2 billion, but the idea that she should get half of Amazon is insane.
I don't know whose fault it is.
It's 100% his fault.
But I'm on his side regardless.
It's 100% his fault. I'm
Because
still
he
on his
provides me
side.
with everything.
He is my favorite of the tech billionaires.
She gets the Post.
No, don't give her that.
So she can have the Post.
And also in the news, of course, you must be very happy about your Eagles and the missed field goal by the Bears. Were you watching?
Was I watching? So it's all going to end this weekend when they're going to lose to New Orleans, right?
Yeah. What's the spread?
Whatever it is, it's not enough.
Is that right? You really think so?
Yeah, New Orleans is just a very good team. That said, New Orleans doesn't want to play them. I mean, the Eagles are hands down the scariest team left in the playoffs.
Yes,
that's
true.
Not New Orleans.
That's right.
And it is nobody wants to face them. They're playing very well at all phases of the ball. They have like a legit great quarterback now running the team.
Right.
And even with that,
Do you want to take a victory lap on the Nick Foles Carson Wentz?
Like I've just been right about this for an entire year.
You're right about a lot of things.
Yeah, no kidding. Not that it's going to matter. The Eagles are still going to. They're still going to go back to Wentz. I don't know I don't know if we've talked about this before, but there must be actuarial tables about the longevity of NFL quarterbacks and little signal markers. So like when you are getting in health insurance or life insurance, the actuaries ask you all sorts of questions. Do you smoke? Do you jump out of airplanes? Do you drive a? There must be some formula where you say to NFL quarterbacks, have you completed 3 of your first 3 NFL seasons healthily? And if you say, no, I've only completed 2, then that projects out to 1 sort of pathway for career. Carson Wentz has completed 1 of his first 3 NFL seasons without injury. Do you think this suggests a guy who's going to play for 25 years in the league without being hurt all the time? I don't know.
The Skins can take him. They'll just throw millions and millions of dollars.
That is great. That will be great when the Redskins trade for Carson Wentz.
Yeah, that's how it's going to work.
But they won't.
Something awful will happen to Carson Wentz.
The Eagles are not going to let go of Wentz. They will, at the end of the season, they'll just lose Foles and they will get nothing for him. They will choose not to. His contract owes him $20 million next year, and they will just say, "Well, sorry, we're gonna." It's the most insane franchise decision ever that I can remember from a rational franchise.
JVL,
you see bad decisions from places like the Jets or the Redskins all the time.
Right.
But the Eagles are actually a pretty smart organization.
It's puzzling. What is the mood in Philly? How are the fans?
They are incredibly gracious. And
as always.
They were very deeply concerned about the welfare of the Chicago kicker, who, after splitting the uprights and making the first kick, then doinks the second one, which, of course, he didn't doink. It was tipped. They didn't. I don't know if you saw that. They actually changed it in the scoring to being a tipped ball. But that...
it was a block. They changed it to a block.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
Wow.
But this is... Even with that, Chicago was clearly a better team and would have won, but for like 3 other fluky things. If Chicago doesn't put 10 men on the field instead of 11, then they win the game. If Nick Foles doesn't convert on 4th and goal with an incredible pass that he essentially sidearms to Golden Tate, Chicago wins. I mean, this really was like the Bartman.
Team of destiny. Team of destiny.
So look, I will say this. The Eagles are going to lose to New Orleans. They'll probably lose by 20. But if somehow they don't, they're going back to the Super Bowl. Because if they beat New Orleans,
they can beat New Orleans,
100% they're going to crush whoever else they see.
Who's in the other
Cowboys?
Game?
Cowboys and Rams.
Okay.
And they'll crush either of those teams. They might
Chicago
be.
had a good
The
defense.
Rams are
supposed to have a
good.
good defense, though.
The Rams are.
Yeah.
That's a good team.
Philadelphia beat them at home like 2 weeks ago when they were just getting started.
But JVL, you noticed there was that everybody in Philly is a fan, including the lowest of the low. You were talking about.
Did you? Yes. The people say you guys saw this. I think I texted this to you.
Yeah.
The
I'll try and pull some audio. Maybe we can include it.
There's a guy in Pittstown.
Yes.
A young,
Pittstown.
Not Pittsburgh.
a young
name-
hoodlum in Pittstown
The name of the town by itself made me laugh out loud.
who was arrested for walking into a music shop, stealing a couple $1,000s worth of guitars. The surveillance video shows him in the middle of the theft, realizing that he's standing in front of a camera, and he sort of looks up at the camera, and you can practically hear him doing a dope. Anyway, as he is being perp-walked out of the police station, a local news bunny saying there says, "Do you have any comments, sir?"
Is there anything you want to say?
And he pauses, looks thoughtfully at the camera, and then says,
Go Eagles.
It's fantastic.
No.
Those are my people.
Those are your people. No, even they all have their priorities straight. They know in their mind it's not, am I going to jail? It's, hey, I hope that team does well. I hope they do well.
Victor,
I hope they go.
how have you been?
I'm doing good.
How's your gout?
Gout break 2019.
Have you seen this? The Manafort stuff? Did you see the game? This is now a thing between you, the favorite, and Manafort. We now have a trend. 3 things.
That's a trend.
Give us a trend piece.
Gout watch.
That's it. Sonny sent me the piece or the excerpt from Twitter. Where, forget about the news about the possible collusion, but rather it was that throwaway line that he is suffering from severe gout, depression, and anxiety. It's not funny.
He's got Vic Matus disease.
It is, or otherwise known as Vic Matus disease. And people are talking about the depression and anxiety. And as I explained on Twitter, that happens because you start thinking about the foods you can't eat. And there are many foods like the red meat, oily fish, organ meats, alcohol, shellfish, Lasso, no more lobster.
Why even
Manafort,
why even bother living?
So something like Manafort, no more lobster, shrimp, and steak, and martini. Then it's
what do you even get when you're at the Palm? Then
I know. I don't know. And so
does Manafort have his picture?
That's
up
a good question. I bet.
Impossible that he doesn't.
I can't.
Right.
I don't think he. I bet he.
I don't know.
That's a weird thing. It would be.
We should ask.
I know.
Next time we go.
I know, like Kellyanne.
You want to go there for lunch?
Yeah, let's go right now. Kellyanne Conway, her face she's been up there for a long time in the Palm, but I don't know about Paul. But I was trying to figure out how is he getting the gout in prison, right? Because he's in a jail in Alexandria.
He's not in prison, right?
He's in jail. He's in jail.
Yeah, I saw him.
He's not on home release.
Yeah, he is in jail. So and they got to give him his meds. You got your meds in jail. So I imagine
White Collar Country Club prison.
No,
or
Alexandria County jail.
Pound me in the prison.
I think I think he is. My only theory is that he's probably not drinking enough water. He doesn't want to drink water because if you're not hydrated,
that trash prison water. I wouldn't want to drink that either.
Prison water is not good. But you know what? But for a lot of us, and like for me personally, I'm doing great now. Right, the gout is gone. And so yesterday I happened to be on a business lunch at the Prime Rib. And so,
just happened to be on a
happened to be.
business. It's amazing how this happens.
Wow.
Business. So it's important
lunch.
business for
Yeah.
the Washington Free
Yeah, I
Beacon.
can't-
Did you bring
I
some
can't
business
discuss it.
documents?
I
Did you
can't-
have a briefcase?
I can't
Some
discuss it.
papers?
No, I brought.
Did you wear a jacket and tie?
I did, of course. Of course, suit. I wore a suit.
Prime rib.
Yes. Which you like, so you're a fan of as well.
I am a big fan
It's
of the
very
prime rib.
old school.
I'm a big fan of the prime rib because it is old.
The
Because
average
it looks,
age is 80.
it has a guy who plays the piano during lunch.
And he looks like he's 90.
And it's got these old leather, banquettes.
Yeah.
It's just, I love everything about it.
So, and what happens is when you are aware of other people who suffer gout at that moment, you tend to want to eat and drink for them. We eat for you is usually the motto for the gout sufferers. We eat because you can't, And so yesterday, yes, Sonny, that's the motto.
You guys have a motto?
Yeah, we do.
Do you have like a whole little?
Yeah.
Do you have a handshake?
Yes, handshake, salute. So I had a shrimp cocktail, calf's liver, and a martini. And the interesting thing about the calf, because there's not many places that serve calf's
You go to
liver
the
anymore.
prime rib to get organ meat.
I like organ meat, and you don't see it in a lot of places anymore. And it was with onion.
It's true because a lot of places don't have an average age of the clientele of 78.
Right, I was my liver and onions, and so I had that, and I said, well, how does the chef want it and prefer it? And he goes, medium rare. So this thing comes medium rare, and it wasn't one loaf. They give you like 2 big loaves, probably because no one else is getting the calf's liver. So I got 2 giant loaves. I felt like Hannibal Lecter. I felt like Hannibal Lecter. It was very chewy and soft and supple. You just felt like you were doing something terrible, but it was so good with the martini.
I'm gonna
It
be
was
sick.
fantastic. Yeah,
I'm gonna be sick.
but you know what? I will tell you what. There was a very brief moment where I looked at the menu and I saw like wild salmon, and I thought, maybe I should get the wild salmon. You do that a lot. You'll get a salmon.
I will occasionally get a salmon. But when I'm at the prime rib, I get prime rib.
Yeah, good. Good.
Yeah,
But the lunch prime rib, I want the full. If you got to go for dinner and that full prime rib, it's like they got it from a dinosaur. It's huge. It's like a brontosaurus burger, from the Flintstones. Yeah. But I mean, and I thought about the fish thing, and I mean, I had the fish. I wrote about the salad for the Free Beacon, I think, on Monday, and that had the steelhead fish in it. And some people say, they eat it 5 days a week. Eating salmon 5 days a week.
The steelhead salmon. Oh, that's so good.
I can't. That's too much fish. You know what that is? That's fish.
Copperhead is even better.
That's fish overload. Speaking of fish overload, over the weekend,
B minus.
A B minus. Aquaman. So
It took us a while to get there. Is the problem? It went on.
Aquaman continued to dominate the box office with another $30 million in its third week,
40% drop,
followed by Escape Room with $18 million. Why don't we talk about that movie? And Mary Poppins Returns in third place with $15 million. Bumblebee dropped down to fourth.
What did Bumblebee open at?
Something low, like in the mid-20s, I think.
And it's not It's not Michael Bay directed.
No.
But it has is it Michael Bay produced? It has a Michael Bay feel.
It's probably got
to
Michael
it?
Bay somewhere in the but I think Michael Bay is done with Transformers movies, is my understanding.
Well, he has said all he needs to say about
well,
them.
he told an arc. There was a real arc
with the Transformers Knights of the Fall or
Fallen Knight.
The Knights of the Last
Dark Side
Robot.
of the Moon, Fallen Knight. So,
Transformers The Last Night.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I guess. And
he really completed his arc with that.
What puzzles me is Escape Room, right? I don't think it's what do you call it, Blumhouse. It's not one of those. But it looks like
it's cheap horror.
It looks like Saw, except it's PG-13.
Yeah, I mean it's a PG-13 horror movie.
In the commercial, which my kids saw on TV, there's a guy being pressed to death. Like the garbage compact scene in Star Wars, except for ending really badly.
Were you offended by this?
I was kind of excited. No, I was thinking.
Are you going to take?
Did you take your choo-choo?
Are you going to take Michael?
So we saw it on Sunday. No, just kidding. But I'm just puzzled why how's that PG-13? The commercial itself was looked terrible. So, but we're not here to talk about those movies. We're talking about a movie that was down in 7th place this weekend, and that was Vice with $5.8 million, and that is directed by Adam McKay about Vice President Dick Cheney. We all saw Vice?
We all saw Vice?
Good. Sonny.
Did anyone else see
He's on break. Sonny, how about a big...
I don't know if you noticed, but we have a new show. We're trying to rebuild an entire new audience. You have to give the people what they want, Victorino. They don't want us.
They overload.
They don't want the three of us.
No, it's overload.
They want Gene.
It's overload. Gene. No, too much Gene. But you how about a big boy review?
Christian Bale plays.
And I had a whole line about the Golden Globes we didn't get to, by the way. Talk about a come from behind. Sorry.
Because Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes. Sonny, I thought you were going to blow your brains out when they announced the winners.
I tell you what.
Who's looking good now, Santino?
Did you see the news last night?
What?
That Nick Vallelonga or whatever his name is.
Vallelonga, yeah. He died.
He didn't die. He's still he wrote the movie.
Oh, right.
He wrote the movie. He won a Golden Globe.
Oh, right.
And he is. But somebody found a tweet where he praised Donald Trump and said that he also saw the Muslims dancing after 9/11.
Nobody's going to see this.
Oh, you don't think anyone's going to see this? You don't think that's a problem?
Everything's fine.
I don't think that's a little bit problematic.
I'm sure it's fine.
No, Green Book's going to win Best Picture. They're 100% chance it wins Best Picture because people are terrible. They have bad taste. They have bad taste.
So despite the fact that I drafted in the third position, who's going to win this thing?
You're still going to lose because I'm going to win all the other categories. It's fine.
What happened
really?
with
How about
Beale
Best
Street?
Actor? You going to win Best Actor?
Might. Christian Bale. Christian Bale won the Golden Globe.
We'll see.
And I still,
Bradley Cooper.
And I still have
Star is Born.
And I still have
I got Rami
Alfonso
Malek.
Cuarón Iñárritu.
I don't think Rami.
Toro.
I don't think Rami Malek's going to win.
Almodovar.
All right.
Sorry. Vice. Let's get to the review.
Vice. So Vice is the story about Dick Cheney from Adam McKay, who is best known as a comedy director, did Anchorman, Step Brothers, Ricky Bobby, that sort of film. He has made a move toward the more serious in recent years with The Big Short, and now he is tackling the greatest living vice president, Dick Cheney. So here's the thing about Vice. It is clearly intended as a sardonic takedown of a vicious, evil, power-hungry, amoral monster. But I kind of like all of those things about Dick Cheney, so I enjoyed the movie. The problem with the movie is that it's actually two movies in one. All right, the first movie is essentially a buddy comedy with Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld, who's played by Steve Carell. That movie is a lot of fun, and it has kind of a natural beginning, middle, and end where Rumsfeld shows Cheney the ropes, and Cheney learns all of the dark arts of the powers of Washington, D.C., and how to insinuate himself into the corridors they're in, and how to amass power and, whatever. And then the end of the film, the natural endpoint of this story is when Cheney fires Rumsfeld from the SecDef job in the second Bush White House and says, you're done. We're going to move on to somebody else, right? Very natural story here. Very natural kind of beginning, middle, and end. Solid arc. The second movie is a Howard Zinn-esque rant about the viciousness of the right wing over the last 40 years, the rise of the post-Nixon right, the evils of the Koch brothers and the Coors family. I hadn't heard the name Coors
they're up
in
there.
a long time. In the unitary executive theory and, Antonin Scalia and Frank Luntz. And it's this, again, it's very kind of conspiratorial and very sinister, and it takes very normal things like focus group testing and turns it into a very evil and malignant sort of idea. Now,
no Democrat has ever used a
no
focus group
Democrat has ever done
in their
that.
life.
Clinton never did that.
They just go with their gut.
So yeah, exactly. So you have these two kind of competing movies that are stitched together with this very lazy voiceover done by Jesse Plemons that tries to walk the audience through these complicated ideas. The problem is that the ideas that they're arguing are not particularly complicated, and they're actually pretty easily demonstrated cinematically. So in The Big Short, you're dealing with a lot of very complicated mathematical concepts. So you have these cutaways, these fourth wall breaking moments where, say, we cut to Margot Robbie in a bathtub, and she explains to us derivatives or whatever her scene was about. And you
don't remember what it was about, but you remember it was
I remember Margot exactly.
A glass of champagne.
So that makes sense. For that sort of movie, that makes sense. For this sort of movie, where they're talking about extraordinary rendition or, I can't even remember what else was enhanced interrogation, whatever. There's this weird scene, which I actually kind of enjoy because it's silly, but there's this weird scene where they cut to like a restaurant and a waiter is reading Alfred Molina is reading off the options that these power hungry madmen can buy if they want to take over the world. And it's very odd because earlier in the film they actually have a very quick and very well done cinematic portrayal of an extraordinary rendition. It's right there. It's right in the film. You don't need the fourth wall breakaway. Anyway, leaving my complaints about the second film aside, I actually really kind of enjoyed the first one. I enjoyed the buddy comedy parts of it. I enjoyed the portrayal of Dick Cheney. I have written a piece for the Washington Post that should be up now, basically defending this portrayal of him and saying, like, if you're a conservative, there's nothing in this movie that's going to make you not like Dick Cheney. To the point that I saw it with a bunch of our friends. We went to the Georgetown Theater on a Friday afternoon, and there's a speech at the end of the movie. Dick Cheney looks at the camera and he says, which of these attacks would you have let go forward because you don't want to treat these terrorists roughly? And we clapped at the end. We clapped at the end of that speech. And the people in the audience were not thrilled with us. We got a couple of shut the F ups.
Wow.
That sort of thing. Anyway, but my point, I only relay the story because I do think that you can watch this film, I don't know if it's even ironically, and as a conservative and come away kind of enjoying what they do with Cheney in it. Thoughts? Maybe I'm wrong. What I realized, I'm sorry, one last thing. What I realized about halfway through my second viewing of the film is that I almost liked it out of spite. Yeah. I almost liked it to spite the director, writer, his intentions.
Yeah, they would find that infuriating that you did.
So anyway,
because you're not supposed.
I don't know. You guys, what do you guys think?
JVL, you just saw it recently.
So I mean, we don't do politics on this show. But there's no way to do this movie without doing politics.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I, for any new listeners, I would like to begin my portion of this with a series of caveats. I am not a very good Republican. I'm barely a good conservative.
Big squish.
I am certainly not a Cheney kind of guy. I was definitely not a Bush kind of guy.
Yeah, that's right.
I am against the ideas of the unitary executive because I like much more distribution of power within the federal system. I certainly disagreed with the freedom agenda all of this. So none of this for me is a brief for the greatest living vice president. Sure. And I don't ever get angry at liberal movies for their politics. Yeah, right. I really don't. No. I just don't. It washes over me. Most of the time, I'm halfway in sympathy with the liberal stuff anyway, because I'm essentially a communist. Yeah. This is the first time I can remember getting angry at a movie.
Yeah.
Because because parts of the movie are so charming. The attitude of the movie is incredibly charming. The fake credit sequence halfway through after saying his heart got healthier and he even completed 3 Ironmans. You would like to know how these things work. How does a man make this decision? But the truth is, it isn't like Shakespeare. And then they cut to Dick and Lynn in bed together having a Shakespearean sort of very Lady Macbeth conversation.
I'm pretty sure it's actually from Macbeth.
Yeah. Is it?
I'm pretty sure
I looked the lines
Macbeth,
up and couldn't find it, but I assume if it wasn't Macbeth, then it was like fake Macbeth. The fantastic stratego-like setting of Washington, D.C. as a board game
Yeah.
with characters when they show who Wolfowitz went here and Scooter Libby went there. That sort of stuff is so puckish and inventive and lovely that
And irreverent.
And I wanted to like the movie. And I don't mind them hating Cheney. I don't mind them viewing Dick Cheney as the source of all evil. Although I would say that there is like an irrational section of this, because I'm sure if you push these people hard, who they really think the source of all evil is like the Jerry Falwells of the world, right? They seem to hold these two totally, separate ideas, which is that the social conservative Christian right people are the worst people in the world, but also somehow Dick Cheney, who doesn't believe in any of that stuff, is the worst person in the world. And they're like a goldfish. Whatever is in front of them at that moment is, well, that's the worst. That's the worst. And there is an incoherence in portraying Bush as this blundering fool who could not be trusted with any of these decisions, and then being angry at Dick Cheney for being the grown-up in the room who's trying to make adult decisions. Like, if you really believe that George W. Bush is a blundering fool who should have been nowhere near the presidency, then wouldn't you be happy to have a semi-serious grown-up like Dick Cheney trying to like move things behind the throne? There's like an incoherence to this. But all of that isn't what I really objected to. What I objected to was a stacking of the deck in ways that were so unsophisticated compared with how sophisticated the idea behind the presentation of something. And so I would say this. Nearly everything that they present about Cheney as a criticism could just as easily and fair-mindedly be looked at as laudatory. So, for instance, in the Situation Room after 9/11, he's cold and calculating, or is he the guy who's just keeping his head in the face of like catastrophe? He's the douchebag who fails out of Yale and then like is doing menial jobs. Okay, or is it that he's a Yaley who's not stuck up about being an Ivy League guy and is okay with work?
He pulls himself up by his bootstraps.
He gets his act together because he's a loser, but only so he can achieve power. Okay, or he stops being a drunk because his wife gives him an ultimatum and he wants to save his marriage. He's callously telling his little girls that they're killing worms to fish is okay because they're just worms. Or is he a dad who's trying to share like the one hobby he has with his children? You know what I mean? Like every one of these things
could be easily
turned around, and the movie is so transparently stacking the deck against the character that it drove me insane. And what I kept wanting from this movie was a Matt Labash profile. So our friend Matt Labash is made his bones doing profiles of characters who are essentially pretty unsavory, like Dick Cheney. He did a fly fishing. He went fishing with Dick Cheney in Wyoming for a week. Like Al Sharpton.
Fly fishing with Darth Vader.
Like Marion Barry.
Like Marion Barry. And
like Roger Stone.
Roger Stone. And these are figures who Labash did not like, did not agree with, does not present them as, he presents them as being wrong, but yet finds some humanity in them, which he does not use to excuse them or alibi them, but to paint a sort of interesting picture of it. And this movie should have been that. This should have been a Matt Labash view of Dick Cheney. And you don't have to change any of your opinions of Cheney. You can still view him as Darth Vader. You can still view him as being uniquely evil, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's that dichotomy between the like very sophisticated filmmaking on one hand with the naivete of viewing Grover Norquist's Americans for Tax Reform group as what they call the center of the Republican world in the year 2000.
Very Jane Mayer. That's
I gotta say,
you see what he's reading.
Nobody who has spent any time in this town and knows anything about politics in this town could say something like that with a straight face. This is the type of thing that like left-wing fever swamp bloggers out in California would think for having read the. So it is so for a movie that is so sophisticated in some ways. It is so childish in other ways that I found that maddening. Did you guys?
Well, this is. No? This is essentially. Look, this is essentially my point. Is that you have a movie that. Again, I choose to view all of those things as laudatory. I choose to view all of those scenes as Dick Cheney pulling himself up by his bootstraps, getting his together, loving his children, actually like doing things that would harm him politically for his children, et cetera, et cetera. I choose to read all of that family drama, buddy comedy stuff in the greatest way possible for Cheney. And then the conspiratory stuff, the conspiracy theory, the kind of, again, Howard Zinn reading of American politics circa 2000 to 1980 as fever swamp nonsense. I just dismiss all of that. I just wipe that all aside.
You don't have to like Cheney. You could still come to the same conclusions about him without being such a chud. I bet Michael Moore watched this movie and was just like, "Oh, come on, dude."
No.
That's how unsophisticated it is.
That was my thought after seeing the movie, was that he has outstoned Oliver Stone. And I had seen,
it's far more incompetently done than Oliver Stone.
And he's also, but he makes Stone look so much more conventional because and he does Stone as comedy. And I don't think Oliver Stone has ever done comedy or attempted comedy. I could be wrong about that.
Natural Born Killers is funny.
But
he literally says that Antonin Scalia is the one who appointed George W. Bush as president.
Yeah.
But by
well, I did love
Antonin Scalia. Remember him?
I did love the kind of Justice League element of this. We're getting all the heroes together. It really is fascinating.
And you mentioned JVL about how unfair it was because they're not showing this sort of human element to Dick Cheney. Yet I've come across several pieces that hated Vice because it made him look too human. Cheney.
That's so weird.
There was one in Outlook that said, in the Outlook section post, said that he didn't go far enough. McKay did not go far enough in treating Dick Cheney and sort of the evil, sort of the deep roots of where that stems from, this sort of plotting to take over the world. And then I saw another piece. It was probably in Spin or somewhere terrible, but it was the same thing about it just
they didn't show him eating human flesh.
Well, that's the thing, but and at the same time you think about other moments in reality, such as after 9/11, and Donald Rumsfeld was actually dragging people out of the building. He was dragging people out of the building,
a fiery building as an old man.
But you couldn't show that in the movie. God forbid.
And what do you get of Carter? This movie spends 30 freaking seconds on Jimmy Carter, and what do they show?
Solar
panels on the roof of the White House because he's a good guy on
forget about the hostage crisis
and then it
inflation.
Claims that the move from global warming to climate change is a right-wing thing. No, it's not.
I did want to talk about this. I wanted to talk about this for a second because the idea that shifting the language of talking about this from global warming to climate change was a conservative idea is the most insane aspect. I mean, it's just factually wrong.
Factually wrong.
It's just factually wrong. This is a thing the left has done because they don't want to have to get into this whole look at these snowstorms. No, climate change. It's climate change. It's not global warming. It's climate change.
That left me so confused when I saw the scene of the quote focus group, and I'm like, what? They did that? Also, ISIS.
How many
responsible for ISIS?
How long do you think they spent looking through Reagan videos to find him saying "Make America Great Again"?
Yeah.
What did we get about Ronald Reagan? Is you tie him to Trump. Yeah. Look, you don't have to like Ronald Reagan. You can. There are all sorts of liberal critiques about Reaganite conservatism, especially Reaganite economic policy, which the left could make. You cannot tie Reaganism to Trumpism because they are diametrically opposed on both foreign and domestic policy.
Especially. No, don't go. I mean, that's too much. Let's not touch on
Ronald
that.
Reagan can be wrong for all sorts of ways. Donald Trump can also be wrong for all sorts of ways. They aren't different trees. They are not from the root of the same tree. They are just wrong. I mean, if you believe they are wrong for entirely separate genealogical reasons. I mean,
there's also the throwaway scenes that will drive you crazy if you know anything about what really happened. There's that throwaway scene about Joe Wilson and Valerie Plame, and he goes, leak her name and the whole thing, go ahead. When in fact it was Richard Armitage, who
one of the good guys.
Colin Powell.
Colin Powell. He's one of the. Novak. Is he one of the red figures or one of the yellow? I forget which is the
yellow.
Right. He's one of the good guys in the Stratego board or the Settlers of Catan board or whatever that is. Yeah,
they're not going to tell you that. So that was maddening. And you mentioned the Sonny, and Kyle Smith mentioned about the lazy writing, and the scene where Cheney meets with Scalia, and Scalia tells him this is how to, the executive unified theory article,
unitary executive theory,
the whole thing. And all I can think of was a scene in JFK where you have LBJ telling the generals, you get me elected, I'll give you your damn war. Okay, well, I guess that's what happened. But honestly, when I keep on going back to Stone because I like Nixon, the movie.
Nixon's great. JFK's great too.
Yeah, and I mean, you take it for what it is, and as you say, Jonathan, like same thing with me. It doesn't bother me, when you from this liberal point of view, and of course, in the end, but in the end, you can't help. In the Nixon case, Stone ends up being sympathetic to Nixon. He dedicated the movie, I think, to his father. And Frank Langella, the same thing with Frost v. Nixon, right? Frost versus Nixon, the movie. Frank Langella, I saw him being interviewed, and he said that he had spoken with Tony Hopkins, and he said that the two of them agreed that they had very strong feelings against Richard Nixon until they played him, and they became very sympathetic. I don't get that sense from either Adam McKay or Christian Bale.
I would say, here's a semi-controversial suggestion, but maybe Oliver Stone is the Matt Labash of conservative president biopics. Because W is, say what you will about W, it's actually I don't know if it's sympathetic exactly, but it is a deeply humanizing portrait of George W. Bush.
He does that.
I think Nixon is a deeply humanizing portrait of a man who is in above his head.
True.
Hey,
Oliver Stone is not a Christer, but his World Trade Center is a full-blown Jesus movie.
Yeah,
right. He becomes sympathetic towards his subjects.
He is actually a religious person. I mean, he's Buddhist or whatever.
That's
But he respects the whole concept of,
and not only those movies, but Any Given Sunday, which humanized Lawrence Taylor, Lawrence Taylor.
No, it's not the politics I object to; it's the stupidity. The absolute ham-fisted stupidity of the way it's executed, and it just bugged the crap out of me all the way through the movie. Same. I couldn't get past it. And of course, it made me angry.
And of course, the tying of big oil and these other special interests to the creation of American Enterprise Institute and the Heritage Foundation, and as you mentioned, the Koch brothers, as if the resident scholars at AEI are all being driven secretly, only by the money to come up with these, conclusions, when there are really a lot of smart people over there. That was mad.
And also, they're not getting rich doing this. If those people wanted, believe me, we all know them. Yeah. If you want to get rich, you go actually work for ExxonMobil. You don't like this idea that there's some anyway. All of which is to say is, I would not have minded any of this at all if the whole movie had been sort of a boring and straight political tract, because then I just sort of say, okay, well, it's just a boring, stupid political tract. It was the fact that the actual attitude behind the movie was so good and so interesting, and the performances, which weren't actually performances, they're just impressions. But the impressions are really engaging. Right?
I think Bale's Cheney is very good. I mean, Rockwell is doing a joke Bush.
But
Perry,
it's a fun joke.
I thought
Steve
Perry,
Carell, I don't think
and
none of them are going
Michael,
beyond.
It was like
skin
Michael
deep.
Scott as Donald Rumsfeld, but still,
it was, and it's not true to. Believe me, it's not true to.
He was a pilot rather.
Yeah, and it's not true to the real.
No,
we actually
I don't
know
think
a
he's
little bit
doing
more about Rumsfeld than.
I don't think he's doing Michael Scott as Donald Rumsfeld. Michael Scott's an incompetent, unlikable person. I don't think Rumsfeld comes across as either incompetent or unlikable here. He's brash. I mean, like the speech at the beginning where he's talking to the interns is more charismatic and likable than anything Michael Scott did in his whole run.
Michael Scott likable.
Never mind.
So I was like, I can relate, but So anyway, do you have other thoughts on this? Well, I mean, in the Adam McKay oeuvre.
I mean, I did just want to say briefly that I do think Adam McKay is one of the best comic directors working today, if not the best.
Anchorman is great. The writing is great.
From Anchorman to, I mean, his run in the mid-aughts with Anchorman, Ricky Bobby, and Step Brothers, and even Semi-Pro. I can't remember if he directed that. Did he direct that? But like I think that kind of that pairing with Will Ferrell was extremely profitable for him. And I watched the other guys for the first time actually this week. It's really funny. It's really like he gets the best comic performance out of Mark Wahlberg that you can get. He has this whole great riff at the beginning with Dwayne Johnson and Samuel L. Jackson as kind of, badass cops, doing kind of like funny cop stuff. And it just the whole thing is very funny and it works really well. And I think Vice is actually very funny too. I mean, Vice has a couple of really great funny scenes, like the penis puppet.
Hysterical.
I mean, like actually laugh out loud funny.
Absolutely. And the idea that it's Kissinger who sort of again, much of that stuff is hysterical, and I love it.
I do love the fact that.
So why can't it be smarter?
I do love the fact that this film kind of portrays Kissinger as the moderate voice of reason.
Cambodia, right?
Nobody seems to have actually thought this through.
No, they don't. And the idea that, again, and I think Matt Latimer mentioned this, that Karl Rove is playing such a small part in all these machinations and plotting that it's really changed.
The left, which fetishized Karl Rove for 15 years,
totally.
Now in an effort, because now the idea is, well, Cheney's now the worst person in the world, so Rove is just this minor figure.
What do we do? We have to plot right.
This is the most politics we will ever talk on this show.
Oh my gosh!
We'll never do it again.
We'll never do it again.
Never do it again.
It is.
Yeah, I was watching. I said, "Oh, Eddie Marsan is in this movie." And I'm like, "Who? I wonder who he's playing." And finally, you find out it's Wolfowitz. I'm like,
question:
really?
Is this like what it was like, say, if there were 3 astrophysicists at the JPL writing about The Martian and complaining about?
Of course.
Well, yeah, but you can't do that with ion propulsion. How preposterous!
Maybe.
Yeah.
Are normal people looking at Vice and being like, "This is great"? It's sort of fresh.
They got a
and
C+ from
interesting.
Cinema Score.
Really?
Yeah. No. See, I was going to give it a C+. There you go.
I am shocked because I would have thought this movie is giving the type of people who would go to see a hit job about Dick Cheney exactly what they want.
Yeah.
But the question is, people who are politically inclined to hate Dick Cheney, not counting you, JVL, are they seeing the movie and say, "Oh, this is even I think this is ridiculous," or "This is too far," or are they I don't know.
What are your thoughts, Sonny? Why do audiences not like it?
I don't really.
For the reasons we mentioned, maybe.
No, I mean, look, I think part of the problem is that, well, this is the old red letter media, Mr. Plinkett bit, right? That even if you don't understand intellectually what is happening on the screen is wrong and bad, your brain understands it. Like, you understand that something is wrong, and you're not seeing the story as it should be told, or the story is not being told in a way that makes sense. And I do think that the kind of constant unnecessary fourth wall breaking, and the terrible voiceover, the totally unnecessary voiceover, tying these two very different movies together. I think it hits people in the back of their head. They're like, just, this isn't work. Nothing about this is working. I think. I don't know, because you would think that if you were the sort of person who is going to go see a Dick Cheney hit piece opening weekend, that you would come away liking this movie. You're the sort of person who goes to see this movie on Christmas Day when it came out. You would think that this is a movie you would like. And I was a little bit. I have to say, I was a little bit shocked that the Cinema Score was as low as it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Anything else, fellas? I think I lost track of time here. We're good. We're good. Okay, good. We do have, believe it or not, a Spirit of the Week.
Yay!
Thanks to substandard listener Robert Little, who sends us a bottle of Irish whiskey, Writer's Tears, made in Irish copper pot stills, single malt, triple distilled, which is, by the way, just the right amount of distilling.
That's how many distillings you need?
3. If anything more than that is all for show. And then you don't really have anything. 3 gives it the right smoothness, but there's still a bit of that character. I would say hints. I have hunts here in my script of butterscotch, apple honey, and of course it tastes like booze. Very Irish and really quite lovely. Again, thank you, Robert Little, for that. Corrections Editions. Nothing.
I got nothing.
Okay. Wow. That's all the time we're giving to this episode. Questions, comments, complaints, compliments. Tweet us at Victorina Mattis at Sonny Bunch.
At JV Last.
Again, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or Google Play. Just type in Subbeacon under podcasts. We're there. Leave a review. Tell your friends. Until next time. So everything else is good with you, JVL? Work is good. Everything's good.
Yeah, everything's good. How about you?
Good. Fine. I'm still excited to see Alita Battle Angel. I think that's going to be and you sent me a picture. You sent me this picture, and then you had some,
vulgar thoughts,
unkind words for me, Sonny. And I just want to point out again, we're talking about how does this work technologically? Is what I'm asking.
All I'm saying is that the photo on the poster is of a prepubescent girl.
No, you're wrong.
And you're wrong. You're very excited for it.
When they're filming, let me ask you this. And then I'll either be right or wrong about this. You have to find this out. When they're filming the movie, right? They film the movie with actual human actors, and they're not talking to nothing, right? They're talking to so a woman is playing her, with the exception of her CGI'd face.
I don't know, man. I don't know how any of this
I'm
works.
assuming that
I'm just telling you what I see on the screen.
I'm telling you that the actress has got to be over 18, and then the face is CGI, so there's no crime.
Let's have our FBI listeners let us know if that's fine.
She has big eyes. What's that to make it a crime because she has big eyes?
Anime.
I was glad to have anime make a return last week. That was nice.
I'm sure it's fine.